Module 2, Clean Vehicle Directive. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is section 2.3, which is setting the Clean Vehicle Directive within its context. Now, first of all, talk to you about the Euro standards. So this is about local emissions, local pollutants. So these are the pollutants that are measured when the Euro standards are assessed. And the latest Euro standard for most vehicles by now is Euro 6. So for light vehicles, a Euro 6 is with the number 6, whereas with heavy duty vehicles it's shown with Roman numerals, so it's VI at the moment for Euro 6. Now, what the Euro standards do measure is these 5 different emissions. However, they do not measure CO2. Carbon dioxide is not part of the Euro standards. Carbon dioxide is a climate change associated emission, not a local air pollution emission. And the Euro standards are only designed to tackle local air pollutants. So CO2 limits set on vehicles. So cars and vans, they must at the moment meet 130 grams CO2 across their fleet. So this is just across the car fleet. It means that you have one manufacturer, if they make very, very large, heavily polluting vehicles, they must then make a number of very small, not very heavily polluting vehicles to ensure that their average is 130 grams of CO2. Now, what this means in practice is many of them, particularly as they get more stringent in future, many of them are exploring battery electric vehicles or ultra low emission vehicles, because obviously they are zero emission. So they counterbalance the higher emission vehicles a lot better than just a small car would. With vans it's coming in a bit later and it's not quite as stringent because obviously vans are larger, but they are coming, and there will be 147 grams of CO2 by 2024. Now, what the van covers is up to 3.5 tonnes. That's the definition of a van. So you're looking at a large sort of transit type van as what was covered there under the vans. Now, the emissions and energy efficiency data required by manufacturers to get their certificate of conformity. So for light duty vehicles, CO2 and fuel consumption is measured during a type approval test. And this is done normally on a rolling road during a cycle which is predetermined. And then with passenger cars it's the same, however there's also a label which indicates the fuel economy and the CO2 which anyone can access when they're looking at purchasing or procuring a vehicle. Some member states, they've got far more detail and interactive type emissions inventories for each of the vehicles. So, I mean, even if you're not part of that member state, you can still access that data. Germany and UK are good examples and Sweden of countries that have good data on all of the vehicles available. So, looking at the heavier duty vehicles, the CO2 emissions and fuel consumption there, the CO2 now must be measured as part of Euro 6, but only as part of the latest Euro 6 vehicles. But it's not shown in the certificate of conformity. But they do have to measure it, so you can then demand it when you get to tender. Now, the other difference between a heavy-duty vehicle and a light-duty vehicle is not grams per kilometre, it's grams per kilowatt-hour of CO2. Part of the reason for doing this is because they measure one engine, and then that engine can be used for a number of different applications. So an engine that lives in a bus and works in a bus is going to have a very different CO2 profile to an engine that works in a truck doing 70 kilometres an hour all day long, compared to a bus that stop-start, never getting over, say, 50 kilometres an hour. This does mean that it's not suitable as a method, as a way of measuring method 3. So in the CVD you can't use these for the method 3, unfortunately. So emissions and energy efficient data required from manufacturers. So toxic pollutants, so that's NOx, NMHC and particulates. Now, there are different pollutants, these are different pollutants that are measured as part of the certificate of conformity. However, because these are not real life tests, these are done on a rolling road to a specific profile of what a journey might look like, they're very, 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 very different to what you will actually find in your vehicles. This will be improved in the coming years, but for now it's difficult to base what you may see on the sort of advertised emissions versus what the real emissions are. So, Clean Power for Transport Directive. Now, this is designed to promote the market breakthrough of alternative fuels. So the short-term aim is to promote market breakthrough, as I just said. The longer-term aim is to really remove oil as an energy source from Europe. And then the main pillar of this is to get local authorities, government departments, those type of organisations really leading the way and being the ones who make the change and make CO2 and oil and all of these bad things removed from passenger car and heavy duty vehicles. Now, the summary of the related legislation. There's a mixture of European level sort of legislation relating to and supporting uptake of clean vehicles. Most of it is actually imposed on manufacturers, whereas the CVD, Clean Vehicles Directive, is actually imposed on the public authorities. So any public authority, if they're buying a vehicle, they have to follow the Clean Vehicles Directive. It's not enough to rely just on the legislation for CO2 emissions, or even the Euro standards to comply with the CVD, as all three of these areas must be considered. So you have to consider energy efficiency, you have to consider CO2 emissions, and you have to consider pollutants affecting air quality. So neither the CO2 emissions that are advertised by manufacturers or the Euro standards that are advertised by manufacturers, neither of those are good enough. You have to go above and beyond to comply with the Clean Vehicles Directive.